Hello everyone, welcome back. We're for practice. Another hour on the track for the cars in Bahrain. This time we go for the second session in the sunlight. The afternoon, not the evening. It's going to be most likely a slower session as we saw from FP2. But it will still be good fun to watch. Regardless, we've got Hamilton, Behrman and Ocon out. Hamilton on the softs, hards for both of the Haas drivers. Ocon setting the fastest time. Hamilton going quickly, not in the middle sector, however. They currently have 4 lap-old softs on, those scrubs. From yesterday, are now going to be used once again. And we are going to see Hamilton come around the final few corners and across the line. That's Behrman into the pit lane. Hamilton looks like they're also going to maybe go to the pit lane. Are they travelling pretty slowly down that start-finish straight? They are. So that's going to be a lap aborted. No registered lap time, a few sectors in, however, for Lewis Hamilton. Esteban Ocon, the only car out on track at the moment. I do wonder if we can maybe see 1 or 2 more cars out on track before Esteban does come back in. Otherwise, it's going to be incredibly quiet. And no running means no rubbering in, means no track evolution. It also means no talking points. Now, yesterday, tried to make sure that we were as prepared as possible. Unfortunately, wasn't quite so simple. With the research, haven't had much time this morning to do much either, but qualifying will be later, and that's where we'll really get everything together. Behrman and Hamilton have come straight back out immediately onto track, which is interesting. Doing some pit stop practice. Hamilton then puts another scrub set of soft tyres on, slightly older. Behrman onto, is that the same hard tyre or is that a scrub tyre? I don't quite know. But it's Esteban Ocon who stays out on track on their fresh hards and is quite possibly going to be staying on that tyre for a fair bit of a while. Now, just a reminder to what happened yesterday, the biggest talking points were probably Fernando Alonso's steering wheel falling off in the middle of FP2, which is never really a good sign, especially when you're entering a corner. He got it back on to the steering mount and continued on his way, and then they spent about half an hour in the garage to try and fix that, maybe 20 minutes, but still a long part of the session that they didn't really want to be spending in the garage. Talking about in the garage, it was Antonelli in FP1 who basically missed out on all but maybe about 10 minutes of the FP1 session after a power unit issue. I assume it was, as they said, they lost power. I think it was a leak as they took the floor off the car. And then we also saw in FP1 Luke Browning be impeded by Alexander Albon, and that saw them receive a €7,500 fine, which is absolutely insane. Charles Leclerc on his way out on track as well. 2 Ferraris, 2 Haas cars, all doing what they can. And Ocon doing pit lane start practice and is about to get in the way of his teammate. No, they do manage to just avoid them, so we were going to get another €7,000 fine there, almost. But no, we stay away from it, nicely avoided, and we continue. Good to go. Alrighty, sorry for the delay, just double checking a few things. I want to see if I can have a look at the Browning and Albon incident. Does mean that it's Sainz's second session of the weekend, but I assume they're happy with their situation. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Oh, it was close. It was scary. So coming up the hill on a fast right-hander, I think that's turn 11 and 12. Just before the right-hander, it was Browning on a fast lap. Albon tries to move out the way at the last second. Instead, effectively moves in the way, and Browning has to go slightly off the circuit. And I wonder if that was where the fine was really made final. He's had to leave the circuit to take avoiding action. And that is quite close. Also, the Aston Martin was behind, so maybe danger to the Aston Martin. That quite possibly was a reason to why they gave that penalty. I'm not entirely sure. It seems a little bit steep. At the same time, I kind of understand why they would give a penalty. Would I still give one myself? Probably not. But it's not an ideal situation that put a few drivers at risk on the circuit. So they don't want to be having anything like that happening again. Now we see the two Alpines out on track as well. We've got 3 sets of teammates all out on the circuit. We've got 2 mediums for the Alpine drivers. We've got Bortoletto changing that statistic. Will Hulkenberg come out as well? That would be an interesting one. They're all following somewhat similar practice programs, as we do see many times in Formula 1. That is what you will notice when you watch practice sessions more often than not. However, it doesn't always go to plan, and all the drivers have to try and do something slightly different to each other because everyone is different. Currently, the fastest time, Lewis Hamilton, half a tenth ahead of Leclerc. They're both on scrub, but fairly new soft tyres at the moment. We've got the hards for both Haas drivers, the mediums for both the Alpine drivers, and they're going to be looking to go nice and quickly, as Doohan will be the first of the Alpines to set a quick lap time. Bortoletto, not entirely sure. I believe they're on the hard tyre. That seems to be what they are on, but we'll get an update on what tyre they are actually on in a few moments. There is Doohan going ahead of the Haas's as expected on that tyre, and then we'll see Gasly, who we expect to also go quicker than the Haas's and maybe quicker than Doohan. Doohan's got a lot of pressure, even though it's practice. Still needs to just plod along, focus, and try and do something with his sessions. Tsunoda out on track as well. Gasly crossed the line. What's their lap time going to look like? And as expected, it will be ahead of of Jack Doohan, and it has a couple of tenths in it as well. 4 tenths to his teammate. That's pretty impressive. 2 tenths away from Charles Leclerc. Purple middle sector only. 44 minutes on the clock. Nothing to get too excited about. Now we see Tsunoda out on track though. Hard tyres, looking to get some useful information in on the session. Tsunoda really needs to try and utilise everything they can. I'm surprised that they didn't go out earlier than they did. Maybe there was an issue, but regardless of why they didn't, there was a very good reason, I am sure, for not going out. Because this man has got a lot to do. And in FP3, further down the order than Max Verstappen, Max did have their own issues as well. So you have to kind of give him a bit of slack. Max Verstappen 7th in the final standings. Yuki Tsunoda 18th. It's still not great to have that gap. Not abnormal in a practice session. Still not great. and it does make a very difficult situation continue to look quite difficult for Yuki Tsunoda. They've got to try and get themselves into Q3. That's their target to build on from Japan. Japan was a tough one. It was their first race. They did do better than Liam Lawson, considering their first race in that car. Liam Lawson, of course, seems to be getting on with the racing ball a lot easier than that Red Bull car. But still, relative to what the results were, it does look a little bit more beneficial to Yuki Tsunoda's side at the moment. Would we see Hadjar move into the seat if Yuki wasn't able to get on with it? That would be pretty impressive. A little bit like Alexander Albon, who was only doing half a season and then immediately got put into a Red Bull seat. And then, would there be room given for Arvid Lindblad? That would be pretty impressive as well. Definitely no British bias in that one there. No, I'm sure he'll be absolutely great if he does make it to Formula 1, but I hope he can focus on his junior career for now to build himself up a little bit more. And as the session has passed on a little bit, Lando Norris and Nico Hülkenberg do come out. Verstappen also makes it out onto the soft tyre. Lots of drivers out on the softs, on the fresh softs as well. Hards for Tsunoda, different to his teammate, which is interesting. But both Haas's on the softs, Lando Norris on the softs. Oscar Piastri you could expect to be on the softs. Lance Stroll on their way out on track as well. And there is Alonso following suit as expected, also on that soft tyre. Tsunoda goes faster than the Haas's on the same tyre. And gets their first lap done in the session. Or was that their first lap? I don't quite know. No, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I missed it. I missed it. Trying to look at everything else on the screens and read through is not ideal, so it is possible to miss a few things. But we will try and get on top of that, of course. Verstappen's going pretty fast on their lap at the moment. We'll see them go over the sector line in a matter of corners. Purple first sector, purple middle sector for Lando, but it's been beaten by that Red Bull car. The Red Bull winning the last race, Verstappen having an absolutely awesome weekend. Lando Norris is going to finish their lap to show us what they can do in the first moments of their stint this session. Piastri exits the pit lane to start their session as well. It's Lando Norris to the top of the times, as expected, by a fair bit as well. A second away from Lewis Hamilton. But Max Verstappen, would they have some sort of an answer here? They're going to go over the sector line very shortly for the middle sector, but they've backed off, and that is going to be their lap done for now, as they're behind Lance Stroll. Now, I think there's been an impeding moment right there as Verstappen was trying to go quickly. Lance Stroll was in the way. Now they're trying to switch positions maybe, or he's just following closely behind Lance as they go into the final corners. Will Verstappen go for another fast lap, or are they going to go immediately into the pit lane? It looks like it will be the pit lane route for Max Verstappen. Alonso is coming right out behind. It's Leclerc who once again leaves the pit lane. Yeah, Verstappen not happy with the situation there. Doesn't look ideal, does it? Alrighty, just going to check a couple of details. Qualifying 5 o'clock. We'll be back for that one later on. Looking at the lap times though, 33.796 with 38 minutes on the clock looking to FP1, we are almost on our way to beat the fastest time of that session. That was Lando Norris with a 33.24, Pierre Gasly with a 33.442, 2.5 tenths almost away, and Lewis Hamilton in P3 with a 33.800. Alright, lots of cars out on track right now, only a few in the pit lane. That is both Antonelli, Russell, Bortoleto, Verstappen, Ocon and Hamilton in the pit lane, with Antonelli and Russell the only ones to not set lap times and still be sat in the pit lane with 35 minutes on the clock. Considering the sessions that they've had so far, with Russell missing FP1 for Frederick Vesti and Antonelli missing FP1 for car issues, they really haven't got as much running compared to other teams on track right now, it seems. Antonelli does make their way out of the pit lane as we speak, so completely taking away exactly or anything that I was talking about just a few moments ago. Now just looking out, still a lot of cars out on track, but Verstappen didn't actually set a lap time in the end and goes back into the pit lane after being impeded by Lance Stroll. Hadjar, Lawson not setting lap times yet, but are out on those medium tyres and are going to be ready to set their first timed laps very, very soon. We see Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon out on track as well. Albon and Carlos just setting their first few laps of the session to see Carlos in 8th place and Alex in 12th. Fernando Alonso putting himself in P3 at the moment. They'll hope that the clock stops with that one after the start to the season that they've had, and so far with their wheels, steering wheel falling off in the middle of FP2, they're going to hope that that bad luck is the only bad luck that they'll have for the rest of the weekend. Pierre Gasly in the middle of the two Ferraris, and it's Nico Hülkenberg up in P7, well ahead of his teammate, who is currently last of the pack, 1.3 seconds away from Oliver Behrman, who had set their laps earlier on and has, well, yeah, effectively not really gone in the pit lane. They went into the pit lane to do a practice pit stop with tyres, but is on a set of hards at the moment compared to softs for Bortoleto, which is not ideal. Now, Hadjar and Lawson set their first sectors. Hadjar will be coming to the end of the second sector very, very shortly. Hopefully he doesn't get impeded by an Aston Martin in front, as Alonso should hopefully get out the way, and they do so. It's Hadjar with a 41.0, which is quite nice. 41.069, slightly faster for Liam Lawson in both sectors, which will add up as they go to the final sector. Hadjar up to P7, Lawson P6, P5. Where will they end up? Oh, losing time in the final sector to their teammate in the end. Not able to make it work, and will end up P9. Not far away at all. Hamilton right in the middle of the two teammates, 0.001 seconds away from Hadjar's time, as they set that one earlier on a scrub set of soft tyres where the track wasn't so evolved. The two racing balls on this medium. Verstappen's still the one with the fastest first sector after going for that qualifying simulation that didn't work out in the end. Leclerc once again leaves the pit lane to come out one more time. Albon as well. Carlos Sainz as well. The track is very busy. Only 3 cars in the pit lane at the moment. Russell finally leaves for the first time. 2 cars in the pit lane now. Esteban Ocon and Max Verstappen, the best of friends, I'm sure those two are, having a chat in the garages. They are not. I'm telling you that for sure. 31 minutes on the clock, almost halfway through this session. It's Oscar Piastri who's on top by 4/10. Norris and Alonso, Leclerc and Hulkenberg finishing off the top 5. Gasly, Doohan, Hadjar, Hamilton, Lawson in P10. It's Tsunoda and Tonelli to P12. It's Carlos Sainz, Stroll, Albon, Ocon, Behrman, Bortoleto, Verstappen and George Russell at the back of the pack, as we now have the two, Russell and Verstappen now out on track. The only 2 drivers to not set timed lap times. But Esteban Ocon goes straight into the pit lane. So now we have 19 drivers out on track at this point in time. A very busy one, giving us a nice simulation. It can cause some drama on track if people get in the way of one another. Tsunoda and Russell are very close together. We've also got Albon and Piastri pretty close, but that's Albon backing off, allowing Norris to go through. Tsunoda and Russell having to try and decide who goes where. Russell backs off, allows Tsunoda to go ahead to get a bit of clean air. And it's going to be Piastri and Norris crossing the line to set some more lap times. Piastri improving in that final sector, but not improving their lap. Nico Hulkenberg says that the car has switched itself off, as you can see him parked at turn 8. The car switched itself off, and now the yellow flag is out, and hopefully we don't get a red flag. It's a VSC, so all cars will have to slow down, and you can see how slow they are all of a sudden going. Massive shame to see this happen. We'll see a few drivers go into the pit lane, I am sure, as Nico Hulkenberg is out of this session for sure. Their name disappears from the timing screens, and that's the end until qualifying for the German driver. Hopefully they can get that one fixed. Hulkenberg happy to get the FP2 running in, which is going to be always useful, of course. But you want to get as much running in as you possibly can. So missing out on that one is quite frustrating, I am sure. Not that what they were hoping for right there. Alright, the VSC continues at the moment. It's George Russell stopping. Once again now registered onto the timing sheets, but looked like they were having an issue at some point there. But they are all good to go. Track clear. We continue. As the Sauber must have been pushed off into either a runoff part of the circuit. And I think if they were on the inside of turn 8, they'll be able to make it back to the pit lane quite easily because they're on the inside of the circuit. However, they will have to get that car towed back, and it might be an opportunity for teams to have a look at what that car is doing, have a look underneath. Which is never what you want, and for a team of Sauber who have definitely been on the back foot despite scoring more points than they did last season already in the first race due to the wet conditions and Nico Hulkenberg allowing his experience to shine through. They are going to want every advantage that they can get, and this delay is not going to help them at all. Now it's interesting looking at the data between Hamilton and Piastri. The Ferrari seems to be pretty quick into turn 1 to turn 4, so at the top end and in the faster sectors, whereas the McLaren in the middle sector is absolutely flying, and in the final sector seems to be the faster car as well. Leclerc's just beaten Hamilton's lap time. So we're going to go over to Piastri to have a look. And apparently in the separate sectors, Leclerc seems to be quick. I'm not entirely sure. We're going to have a quick look. And another quick look. And it seems to be that in the separate sectors, the Ferrari maybe is the quickest, but still, Oscar Piastri has chained it up together better. And is not 9/10 away. Verstappen to P2 rather recently at 33.5. We're getting nice and quickly already. We're going to go and look at the data for Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen with their lap times, and I'm not entirely sure I'm understanding this data screen, because it's suggesting that Max Verstappen's lap time is kind of improved or better in certain areas. I think it must have been their last laps, not their fastest laps. That would make sense for sure. Now, Verstappen back into the pit lane, followed by Piastri, Norris, Alonso, Gasly, Doohan, Tsunoda, Sainz, Bortoletto and Behrman. Both Haas at the back of the pack after being the first cars out on track this morning. They say this morning, this afternoon in Bahrain, and this afternoon also in the UK. Earlier in the session, I should say. And George Russell and Liam Lawson having a little bit of a shindig on the circuit. It's, I believe, Lawson getting in the way of Russell on a quick lap. And I think Russell then in turn got in the way of Lawson on his quick lap. So they both got in the way. They're now going side by side through the S's. And they do sort each other out eventually and carry on their separate ways as Lawson stays ahead and extends the gap. Lawson really not happy with Russell, calling him an annoying guy. And actually Lawson has managed to go quicker than Russell, just to put salt on the wounds, and they're on very similar tyres. Lawson actually on scrub tyres. The same compound, but yeah, very similar age tyres. "20 minutes out of the 20 minutes left of the session, and it's Piastri, Verstappen, and Norris. The top three that I would expect, the top three that we saw in Suzuka. And I'm assuming we'll see it here in Bahrain as well, but with more strategy to play, expecting a two-stop strategy this weekend, I think it's probably going to be where McLaren get their advantage, and I think we could see a Norris Piastri either way round, and then a Verstappen P3. Now, Ferrari have got upgrades. They're hoping to go quicker. So far in practice, it hasn't really come to anything. But I really am interested to see how this one goes with Piastri and Norris. Are they going to be nice and calm with one another, decide the race within the first couple of laps and then just take it to the end? Is it going to be a little bit more complicated with Verstappen in the mix? Are they going to be free to race? That could be interesting. I would love to see the race. I don't think we will. If they are close out on track and far ahead, they will just manage it. Maybe they would end up racing at the very end of the Grand Prix. That could be an interesting one to have a look at. Now, looking at the times, last season the FP3 lap time ended up being a 30.824 from Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. We're currently on the 33.3. Earlier on, yesterday with FP2, where the track conditions were a lot better, we saw 30.505 from Oscar Piastri, and FP1 we saw 33.204. So we still haven't yet beaten the fastest time from FP1 from Lando Norris. And yes, we've beaten P2 already, but still it's not as I expected, to be honest. Not a problem, just not as I expected. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris and George Russell were the top three for the FP2 session. So I do really wonder if that Mercedes is quicker than we can currently see. Would George Russell get another podium this season and then be able to bring it up to that top three, maybe even fight the two McLarens? or is Verstappen going to have it? I think I have to say Verstappen right now. I think going into the weekend, I thought maybe George Russell would have it after looking at FP1. But no, not FP1, sorry, FP2, because now the driver actually went into FP1. FP2, so after Friday, effectively. But now I think it may change around a little bit. Now, depending on how this goes with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, currently 62 points for Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, 61 points to their championship. It's 49 for Oscar Piastri. You get a 7-point difference if you win a Grand Prix compared to P2. If you get a fastest lap, of course, that goes to 8 points. So, even if there was a 7-point difference in Lando Norris and George Russell's, Oscar Piastri's positions, there would not be a change in the championship order for those guys. And if it was a P1 for Oscar Piastri and a P2 for Max Verstappen, there still wouldn't be a switch between Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. And considering that situation, we would then see Lando Norris lose the lead of the World Championship into leaving Bahrain, and we would see Max Verstappen regain the top spot for the first time in a couple of races only. George Russell having a little moment in the gravel, it seems. Trying to push the limit. That's a yellow flag. Only seems to be a temporary yellow flag for now as it's track cleared. Russell does have a spin. That was the yellow there. So the Mercedes seeming to be a little bit of a difficult car to drive. Russell dipping a wheel in the gravel, locking up, having that spin. Having issues as what we saw from the Red Bulls yesterday. George Russell making a comment saying that he's got the least amount of grip that he's ever had in a Formula 1 car for a moment there. Is that an exaggeration? I don't know. But Bahrain in the day can be some quite tricky conditions. And with the car that they're trying to drive at the moment seeming to have those issues, I'm sure it's understandable to see why they've made that comment. Many cars out on track right now, on their way to make it. Lots of cars in the pit lane from what we saw earlier on. We've got 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes in this session to go. It really becomes crunch time now as you try and get your final little opportunities in before you get ready for qualifying later on. That'll be at 5 o'clock BST, 6 o'clock CEST. And I'm not entirely sure what time it will be for Bahrain itself, but I'll double check that one real quick. My track time, it will be at 7 PM, so 2 hours ahead of British time, 1 hour ahead of European summertime at the moment. At the moment, and it probably won't change either. Now you can see lots of cars out on track. Not as many people in the pit lane and a lot of cars on the soft tyre. Albon goes and sits the fastest first sector. How long will that stand for though? As we've got Piastri, Norris, Verstappen all on those soft tyres. And they're going to be looking to try and go as quick as possible. Are we going to see these cars go faster than they did last year in FP3? Are we going to see them go faster than they did earlier on? Or sorry, yesterday. Less than 24 hours ago in FP2, which was faster than FP3 by a couple of tenths. FP2 though, 30.374 was the fastest one, so still faster last year the cars were, but now they're going to try and beat that again. Albon still seems to be the fastest car with that first sector at the moment. There goes Albon. Only to P4, not quite getting the quickest sectors in the third and second sector, but still going quickly. Half a tenth away from Lando Norris, but half a second away from Oscar Piastri. Norris going pretty slow in that first sector relative to the other cars around him. Verstappen just shy of Alex Albon's time. Have Red Bull fixed their issues? Apparently there's lots of understeer for Verstappen. Braking issues for them yesterday, both Tsunoda and Max. Purple middle sector there for Verstappen. A purple first sector for Jack Doohan. Nice and quick compared to their teammates. Time of 5:01. Purple middle sector for Gasly though, beating Verstappen's middle sector. Verstappen goes fastest for now. Oscar Piastri's gone and set the quickest sector by an absolute monster amount of 29.144 has really dialed it in. 40.023 for Gasly in the middle sector now. How long will that stand for? Will Oscar Piastri beat that one? Verstappen goes faster than Gasly goes faster than Max Verstappen's lap time, half a tenth in it, but Oscar Piastri is about to reach the middle sector and once again goes absolutely miles ahead of the top two at the moment. Absolutely incredible stuff right now. Behrman to P9 with their fresh softs. Lots of cars back into the pit lane. And there goes Piastri, 1.3 seconds ahead. Incredible. Norris didn't really set a representative time. I don't think they actually improved in the end. They're back out onto the track. Hadjar to P3, just marginally behind Pierre Gasly. But 1.328 seconds goes Piastri ahead of Gasly with 9 minutes on the clock. Wow. They do not have the fastest car. Incredible. Incredible. What a car. Looking very impressive at the moment. The papayas is Antonelli, who goes half a tenth faster than Gasly, but still 1.2 seconds away from Piastri. And the Mercedes is considered one of the faster teams of the grid. Lawson to P6, still behind his teammate by a few tenths as well. Now, Yuki struggling compared to his teammate. That's Esteban Ocon to P6. Setting an improvement lap well ahead of his teammate, all on the soft tyres. Everyone's out on the soft tyres, some fresher than others, some scrubs, some not scrubs. But regardless, the times are the times. It's Piastri, Antonelli, Gasly, Hadjar, Verstappen, Ocon, Lawson, Norris, Albon, Alonso, Leclerc, Hamilton, Behrman, Bortoletto, Hulkenberg retiring earlier on, It's Doohan, Russell, Tsunoda, Stroll and Carlos Sainz to rear off the end of the grid. 8 minutes to go. Still a couple of drivers in the pit lane, but they will be getting ready to go out for one final time to do those practice starts before the end of the session. Now Russell is going quicker and pretty quickly in the middle sector. Nowhere near the McLaren in the middle sector, but fairly pacey in sector 1. Russell crosses the line to P2, 1.1 seconds away from Piastri, almost a tenth ahead of his teammate, which is his closest comparison and the one guy that he wants to beat every weekend. But still, that McLaren is absolutely immense. Will Piastri even leave the pit lane until they need to for the starts? Practice starts. Gasly making a comment on how quick the McLarens are. P4 for Pierre Gasly, saying that they're happy with their lap, but that McLaren is just absolutely unreal. And that's Carlos Sainz to P7 from P20 just a few moments ago. Doing out on track once again. Bortoleto as well, the two rookies. It's Alonso up to P10. All these lap times are coming through. Lando Norris is out on track at the moment and improving. Where will they be relative to their teammate? They go to P2. Half a second away from George Russell, but 6 tenths away from their teammate. So, a decent lap from Lando Norris. Older tyres, a bit scrub, as they seem to have issues on their first attempt at setting a quick lap time. They did get track evolution, but I think the fresher tyres are definitely going to have that difference, as Piastri is not out on track at the moment. But Lando finally gets that lap done and does go incredibly quick right there. It's Charles Leclerc with a brilliant lap time considering the McLarens. A tenth away, tenth and a half away from Lando Norris. And really has brought it up right there. Hamilton to P10 with their lap. And they are a fair few tenths off in a couple of the sectors. 3 tenths away from Leclerc in the first sector, about a tenth, or actually about 2 tenths away, more or less. A tenth and a half maybe, from Leclerc in that final sector. The middle sector is a little bit closer, but still almost 2 tenths away. So it's an interesting one. Leclerc dialing it in quite nicely compared to Hamilton. Currently lots of cars in the pit lane with 4 minutes to go, and they will wait for these final opportunities to get those practice starts in. Of course, we will be back for qualifying later on, which is going to be absolutely awesome to see what those McLarens can really do in the session and where P3 will be. And who will be P3? Will it be a Ferrari? Will it be a Mercedes? Will it be a Red Bull? Will it be Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen or Tsunoda? Currently Tsunoda P19 on the way out on track on the hard tyre. This is what they're looking to do. They're going to try and get some idea of what they'll need to do for practice starts, or for what they'll be looking at for maybe race day. So that gives us a little insight to maybe Red Bull's intentions. Would they start Tsunoda on the hard tyre? Are they just going to do a few laps and then end the session here? Or are they going to go into the pit lane once again? I don't know. Doing to P12 on that scrub, but fairly fresh set of soft tyres. About 4 tenths away from their teammate. Currently, all of the top 5 in the pit lane at the moment. 2.5 minutes on the clock. The seconds are going away. The final moments in practice. And then we really dial in for qualifying. Cannot wait. It's going to be awesome. Currently, with the time that we've got on the clock, Gasly Hadjar looking very, very strong this weekend so far. Carlos Sainz has managed to find a decent amount of pace. Hamilton not really seeming to get on with the car so well throughout the weekend as well. If we look at the times from FP1 and FP2, Hamilton was P3 in FP1. In FP2 was P8, where their teammate was P4. Now, sure, FP1 looked pretty good, but the other Ferrari was Dino Beganovic, so Leclerc wasn't actually around to really give us an idea of what the Ferrari could do with 2 full-time drivers out on track. But it's Lewis Hamilton who needs to find a little bit more by the time it gets to qualifying later on. 1.5 minutes on the clock, and all these cars will be on their way out for these final opportunities. Currently, we've got hard tyres for Ocon, Behrman and Tsunoda. Everyone else out on the softs or in the pit lane or leaving the pit lane. And we've got Piastri, who is on some fairly fresh set of soft tyres, but they have kind of just left the pits really. So they are only going to be doing a practice start. Quite possibly waiting for the flag to go and then coming around one more time to end the session. And in a few moments time we will be able to call the grid and let you know the final positions, with Piastri currently on top and looking like they will hold that time quite comfortably. Nobody's going to be improving anytime soon to take that lap time down, as we've got a few seconds left on this session and the clock is done. The session is over and we allow all the cars to go through. Lawson's the first one to take the flag, and everyone out on track set from Hulkenberg. 19 cars getting ready to do their practice starts before the session ends, and they do make their way to qualifying. Just looking at the times, no one is improving, so it is all the same kind of business for everyone. They're all looking to do exactly the same thing here. We have actually got an improvement sector from Alex Albon, currently P15. They are going somewhat quickly. Are they going to complete this lap and go even faster in the final sector, I should say, to try and get closer to their teammate? This is the most excitement that we will be getting for the rest of this session. Across the line, Alex Albon goes. And they improve in that final sector. They improve their lap time, but they don't improve their position. 2 tenths behind Fernando Alonso. And, yeah, a fair while back from their teammate Carlos Sainz, who James Vowles has said has really given him more than he paid for. Carlos Sainz apparently absolutely incredible when it comes to the full driver package. And is this the race that Carlos Sainz turns it around and beats Alex Albon for the first time? Is that going to be happening? Or I don't know, but we'll find out in a couple of hours for the preview for the Grand Prix. That's qualifying that will be coming up a little bit later on. Few more cars to cross the line and call it the end of the session. And it will be George Russell to finish off. And across the line, George Russell will go. They will not be setting an improvement lap. It is Oscar Piastri on top by 6 tenths ahead of Lando Norris, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Gasly, Hadjar, Verstappen, Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, P10, and then it's Esteban Ocon, Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso, Alexander Albon, Oliver Behrman, Lance Stroll, Gabriel Bortoleto, Nico Hulkenberg, and Yuki Tsunoda at the back of the grid. The fastest time was a 31.646, and we did not get anywhere near the fastest times that we got in FP2. We didn't get anywhere near the fastest time that we got in FP2 last year as well, or really the time that we saw in FP3 last year as well. But it is a slower session generally because of the night session being a little bit more advantageous for the tyres. We'll see you though, with the lights on, in the night sky, full qualifying in a couple of hours. As I said earlier on, the cars are really going to get themselves dialed in, and we're going to see who the fastest drivers are out on track. Will Tsunoda get their situation sorted? Will Hulkenberg be able to start qualifying in time? Will Hamilton be able to get close to Leclerc? And will anybody contest the McLarens for a 1-2 lockout? Could that be possible? We'll see then. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to predict my qualifying right now. It's going to be Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and George Russell. I'm going to go back to my original expectation from FP2. There we go. Thank you very much once again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.